It's a pleasure. Sorry. For me, it's a pleasure and also a challenge to introduce you, Professor Annette Leßmöllmann. Correct? Yeah. I was all the night practicing. A distinguished researcher in the field of science communication. There is no doubt about that. She has been professor of science communication at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, and she has served also as head of the Department of Science Communication at the Institute, and also as Vice Dean and Dean of Studies of the KIT, Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. Professor Leßmöllmann is widely recognized for her contributions to advancing science communication. In 2020, she edited the landmark volume Science Communication as part of the Handbooks of Communication Science series, alongside esteemed colleagues as Marcello Daskal and Thomas Gloning. This work remains an essential reference for the discipline. Her international collaborations have been equally noteworthy. She actively contributed to the PERSIST project, contributing to publish the key findings in the book. You can look at this book online. You can read the complete book. The standard indications for the social appropriation of science, Lessons Learned, a project undertaken in partnership with Science Flows, the group that is organizing this meeting, and the Science, Culture and Innovation Unit at the University of Valencia. In addition to her collaborative research, Professor Leßmöllmann's individual scholarship continues to shape the field. Her 2022 publication, Are We All Doing Science Journalism Now?, on the epistemization of journalism, explores ethical challenges in the intersection of science and journalism. Beyond academia, Professor Leßmöllmann is deeply engaged in herself in public science communication. She regularly participates in panel discussions, contributes columns to journals, knowledge transfer, leads colloquia on emerging topics like artificial intelligence and digital public spheres. Today, Professor Leßmöllmann will share her insights in a talk titled Science Communication, Strategies, Audience, and Research Methodologies. Welcome, Annette, to the University of Valencia, and the floor is yours.
Is this better? Is this working? Yes, it's working. Yes, it is. Okay. Thank you for having me here. So what am I going to do today? I'm trying to explain a little bit what our group does, my group does, and what we do in Karlsruhe. You already see here a little bit some examples. For example, the usability lab, where we make people watch science communication and then look at their eye movement, and together with other methodologies, we try to find out what they see, what they maybe understand, and if there are any changes in attitude or behavior. And here you see me with much shorter hair, trying to explain to students theoretical and empirical insights into science communication. And here you see my students that do also practical courses. So my first step today will be to, this is too far away from the, doesn't work anymore. Okay. It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. Okay, it doesn't work anymore. So trying to give you a little bit of a landscape here. This I borrowed from PCST, who did this map on education on science communication. And what you see here quite well, but here it's a bit more difficult. There's this little yellow blot. This is Karlsruhe, and it shares a feature with Lebanon, the American University of Lebanon. So these are the two institutions who offer a BA in science communication. So Lebanon is health communication. In Karlsruhe, we start with science communication. So this was, when we started to do this in Germany, that was totally new. People called us fools. How can you do science communication from scratch? Shouldn't you be a physicist and then start to study science communication in the master? And we said, no, from the beginning, people have so-called natural sciences, but also a lot of communication skills and communication research. Science of science communication was the idea. In 2050, we also offered, started to offer the master in science communication. Both are well established, and so you can do a bachelor, a master, and of course also PhD in the subject of science communication. So the crazy people from Karlsruhe, yeah, are still there. Okay, so this is what we do. And Julie already mentioned this handbook, where together with my colleagues, Marcelo and Thomas, I try to formulate an idea, and that is interdisciplinarity. So you find in this book approaches from STS studies, philosophy, linguistics, etc., etc. So this was one of the basic ideas, and you find also a text about the practice of science communication. So interdisciplinarity and so-called transdisciplinarity is kind of my approach and our approach to this kind of this field. Okay, my next step will be that I try to talk about what is happening now and what kind of environment do we live, because and Fabian is nodding already. We discussed this quite intensely during the last day. So my approach is we have to look at the communication situation as it is, because science communication is part of this communication. Science communication doesn't have any privilege anymore. I don't know if it ever had it, to have like a special bubble of communication where all this stuff doesn't happen. No, or maybe not. Yeah. So what is happening? So I put it a little bit keynote-y, a little bit, pointed. Bullshitting is cool. Lying is considered as being the minor evil. So if you look at a philosophical idea by Harry Frankfurt of 2005, he defined bullshit as being the way to communicate not truthfully, but considering only the impact. So the impact beats truth. Impact of messages tend to be valued more than their truth value. In 2005, it was also a topic. Now it's kind of everyday news, right? Second, truth or truthfulness isn't necessarily the least common multiple. So it's not that we all have this common ground of well, we have different opinions and different stances on what is happening, but at the end, we try to find something factful or argue in a factful way. This, I'm not sure. This common ground seems to be in part of the political scene or the societal discussion be, let's say, challenged. And one consequence of this is that if you are pro-truth, because you're just a scientist trying to talk about facts, you are considered to be a woke person who is having a liberal agenda. So the consequence of this is, for many years, there was a very important discussion in science communication. Should science, or does science have values? Spoiler, yes, it has. And should science communication be value-driven? Spoiler, difficult discussion, because values, don't they contradict science? Big discussion. The philosophers have their stance. They say, yes, we have values. We don't exactly know what they are, but we have values in science. And science communicators in practice sometimes tend to put science into the value-free bubble and draw legitimate themselves by communicating science as something value-free. So this is already a problem because it's maybe not true from a philosophical point of view. But now we have another sharper problem. Just talking about truth can be a political act and considered to be a value-driven act. Okay, consequence is there's a lot of discussion on this. For example, in this piece in Science, scientists as political advocates, Agustin Fuentes is arguing that we are political advocates, even if we don't want to be it. Communicating science is an advocate act. Not with every person. If you go to some astronomy class, people just want to talk about mathematics, astronomy. Maybe the politicization is not so strong, but in many areas of society, speaking up on science is speaking up on an agenda. And this piece is trying to argue, okay, if we are considered to be political advocates, we should assume this role and know about how to be advocates, do it right, do it good. Okay, so this is one of the areas I find quite interesting. Now, we don't have to look at the US to find a challenging of scientific or democratic institutions. This is Bauhaus, famous in Dessau, one of the milestones of modern architecture. It also has a university, Bauhaus University. And what is happening now? We have this right-wing political party, Alternative for Deutschland, they call themselves. And they are challenging these institutions, for example, Bauhaus. They say it is an aberration of modernity. We have to question it. This formulation we had already in 1933 when Hitler came to power. This is nearly the same formulation. So we have again a challenge of, modern institutions, international institutions. AfD wants a German style, Okay, everything it seems it comes back. So challenging the freedom of scientific endeavor, challenging institutions that are contributing to a plural view on the world. Second, if you look at this article in the New Yorker, don't read it, it's traumatizing. Okay, I try to tell it in a way that it's not traumatizing. So what is happening in Texas? There's an anti-abortion law which causes women who would need an abortion due to medical reasons to be challenged with death, let's face it. So for internal bleeding or, well, dying of hemorrhage or whatever. So what is happening is that the OB-GYNs, the doctors who are treating them, are fleeing the state in a considerable proportion. 25% of the medical doctors are away from Texas now. So putting the focus away from the traumatizing and life-threatening drama, we can see expertise is thrown away or driven away from the state. Doctors are driven into unethical behavior of not treating people who they could treat concerning the actual state of expertise. So we're acting against expertise, against science in a way. Okay, so this is just one example how science is getting under attack. This is a picture of people destroying cameras in this resurgence in 6th of January 2020 it was. 22 it was. You know, this coup d'etat intention on the Congress in Washington. So there is a lot of hindering of, let's say, deliberation, which is also happening in the free press on current political issues. And of course, many constitutional institutions are challenged. We see it now. We every day get news from the US how the FBI and every institution that is part of the US is going to undergo some kind of a revolutionary recreation, let's say. And then last step, there are many more examples. How do right-wing populists try to win? They create a news environment where democratic deliberation is not heard anymore. The Washington Post decided not to endorse any candidate openly with what they always did. And what Elon Musk does, we all know. You see, I blocked him on Twitter and I switched to Blue Sky. I don't know if this is going to save the world, but at least I tried. I don't know. And then on Blue Sky, he started following me. Me, why? Crazy. Okay. So when we do science communication, also when we do interactive research on science communication with societal stakeholders, the starting point is that we live in a communication ecosystem that is in part polarized, politicized, and maybe takes science as a target, not as a foundation, but as a target. It's targeting science. What happened in Valencia, science was targeted. Then we all know these empirical studies and theoretical approaches to, we have a segmentation of publics. We cannot talk about the public anymore. We have the segmentation, and thematic choice and media environments are also segmented. Second point is, I find it very important still what Mike Schaefer said nearly 10 years ago. When we talk about trust in science, we always have to talk about medialized trust in science, because scientists are perceived via media. So this is important for empirical research also. And then people are people. Psychology tells us we work with bounded rationality and cultural cognition. So the mere transmission of facts never really worked, and it won't work if we take polarization, politicization, et cetera, into account. So it, yeah, strengthened this point. So my next step will be, I will tell you a little bit how we try to put up with these challenges. Of course, it's only one little chair in Karlsruhe. So I believe in networks. Maybe we can exchange on all this. These are my current projects, and I'm going to dive a little bit into them. And I'm starting with the one outreach project. I'm not starting with the science, I'm starting with the outreach project that reaches out to communication professionals in Germany. And that's Wissenschaftskommunikation.de, science communication. As you know, or might know, I don't know, Wissenschaft in German is the broad conception of science. It's science, social science, and humanities, which is nice. We don't have to explain it, but sometimes it is mixed up with science communication, like natural sciences. Here it is all the sciences, and we address it's funded by the Federal Ministry, and we address communication professionals with a lot of information about their work, their role, new formats, etc., but also with research. So the science of science communication is part of what we try to get into the professional field. And as you can see, we just changed to blue sky. Yeah. Okay, now switching to the science projects. One project I'm following on in several sub-projects for some years now is the investigation on strategic communication in higher education institutions. So we did kind of a cartography of how German public universities communicate and how they are organizationally structured and what the differences are and how the differences in organization might yield different kinds of communication concerning, are they doing more marketing or are they doing more, community communication? The current project, HOCOPRO, is on private universities. So we try to find out how they communicate, maybe, and they do, that's a spoiler, we just started, but they communicate very differently. So marketing, student marketing is one of the basic things. So they try to, get funding all the time. Okay, different projects, different funders. And now this project, I would like to dive into a little bit more in detail because this was the starting point of more research questions. Wissenschaft für alle, Science for All, a project before the pandemic, but we are still working on it, also without funding sometimes because it's a very relevant topic. So this is a project where we try to find out how can groups of people be reached who are normally not reached, the so-called not easy to reach audiences. So that's maybe a topic that is could be interesting here also. And we got a little Hochschulperle, so someone said this is a good project, so thank you. Okay, turning to Emily Dawson, Science for All, why should we do this? Science communication practices construct a narrow public that reflects the shape, values, and practices of dominant groups. We had this already yesterday. Excluded or non-participating publics have remained largely unexamined in research or have been imagined in negative terms. This was our starting point. And Schäufele 2018 said, most importantly, a better theoretical understanding of different audiences for science will also allow us to address one of the most pressing problems in science communication, communicating beyond the proverbial choir. So this was the starting point. This is what is still happening. So an elderly white man talking to elderly white men. So that is not so an old photograph from a German university. And why is this happening? Why are people excluded or feeling excluded? So in a literature study where we looked at literature, not only from science communication, which at that time did not do so much about it, but we looked at psychology, pedagogy, etc. We extracted different factors. So first of all, the individual factors. Language, I will dive into this in a bit. values and trust can be factors that exclude people. So if you don't share, or you feel you don't share the values with those people communicating science, you won't enter in any museum. Or there are maybe trust issues that connects very well to what I said in the beginning. People not trusting science will not go to the university and listen to scientists. Then there are social factors, of course, socioeconomic status, but also cultural barriers. Germany is an immigration country, and there seem to be quite a lot of barriers that have been built up over the decades. And there are structural factors. One is location. I will show you in a second what this is, but also media usage. I mean, German professors hate TikTok because it's TikTok. But if they don't go to TikTok, they won't meet many audiences. So a colleague of mine from linguistics has over 100,000 followers on TikTok, and he's talking about linguistics, and it's working. So it's possible. But if you don't do it, you miss a lot of people. So let's take out one factor, location. There are many people who have this experience of intimidating architecture. And it's not only the imperial style German architecture, it's also can also be the modern architecture that is considered to be or felt like intimidating. They have the feeling that these buildings or locations are unusual for them, they're not used to it, or they are even considered as being daunting. So buildings that can elicit daunting experiences not connected with science hinder people to even enter. And of course, other barriers like accessibilities, people who cannot who live in the outskirts and cannot reach the location, etc. All these are very important hindering points, and we tend to forget that. We just choose a location because it's for us easy to use, but it's not easy to use for the people we want to attract. A second one, which has become the base for several other projects for me, and as I'm a linguist, I have to talk about this, is the language barrier. So different mother tongues are in the room. Which one do you use? How do you address language plurality? Then there's this old but gold problem of jargon, of academic jargon, technical language. That's an ongoing problem. It's not going away. Why? Because scientists have the feeling that they lose face when they don't use it because their colleagues are listening. So we won't lose this problem so easily. And then, of course, group-specific language. In Germany, for example, dialect use is an issue. A scientist using the so-called High German is maybe considered to be someone who's telling dialect speakers that they don't speak well, and then they feel excluded and repelled. Okay, I don't know how this is in Spain, but I can imagine that language problems are a topic here too. Language factors are connected with other exclusion factors we identify. One is academic habitus. There's a certain way you move or you behave yourself or you interact with your colleagues that gives the clear signal to people from outside of academia, okay, this is a group I don't belong to. I just don't belong to. It's not good, it's not bad, I just don't belong to, I don't feel included. So habitus is a sharing of social capital, Bourdieu style, which tells other people you're not part of this group. And then there's, of course, dyslexia. 10 to 15% of people in Germany have some kind of dyslexia issue, so you also have to take care of this. So in linguistic terms speaking, it's social meaning of academic language use. The meaning of using certain sentences that show you're part of academia. And people notice that. They have this sensory system that shows them, okay, this is not my world. So implicit social cues, in-group and out-group signals, and face work. People are afraid of losing face when they enter communication situations. You don't enter communication situations where everyone is looking at you like a strange insect from some other part of the world. And this is happening a lot. I think we all know and have been in such situations, and you try to avoid this. Okay, language, and it's not only about jargon. When we speak about language barriers, very often academic jargon that is blamed, but it's much, much more. Okay, so what we did after this, we did focus groups on 3 communities. We assumed that they might have a certain distance to academia. Of course, you always have to take care that you don't fall into some prejudiced judgment here. So we talked a lot with people and community managers and speakers of the Muslim community, for example. So there was a lot of interaction before we started these focus groups because we didn't want to alienate them. Okay, Muslim community in Karlsruhe. Then we went to Berlin-Spandau. That's not fancy schmancy Berlin, but the outskirts of Berlin, where people are struggling economically and socially. They're much higher voting now, at that time not so much, but now for the right populist party, AfD, etc. And the third group was the apprentices in formal education. So they are learning to be water and heating installation specialists. And in Germany, these people also go to school, okay? That's school and practice apprenticeship. And so we talked with one group from one of these schools. And what did they tell us? The education and habitus exclusion criterion really kicked in a lot. So people told us, well, you think by yourself, these people are a lot smarter than us. And this is why we don't go to any communication event. These academics, they are so much smarter. We were told that we are not smart enough for academia. We were told not to attend grammar school. Germany has this segmentation education system. So you're segmented into not grammar school. So why should I go to some university event where people keep telling me that I'm not smart enough? So I'm not going. The second one is most of us come from secondary school. That is not the grammar school, but the other schools. And we live just in other educational surroundings. It's not our life to be near academic people. So clear exclusion experience. Then there is time as a resource. We work the day over and we don't feel we have the time in the evening for evening lectures at university, etc. And then there was a perceived lack of interest of the science communicators. So why don't they come to our school and do formats with us? Why do I have to go to their place? Why don't they come over to my place? Okay. So they are not interested in communicating, obviously. And then other points were that they felt, that was a point we also already had yesterday concerning mathematics. Is this relevant for me? And I don't get the information when these science communication events happen, because in my part of the city, there is no information about this. And also the location issue, I don't go into universities, not my place. So in order to communicate all these findings to science communicators, we did this funny picture. Of course, here you don't see much, but when it's like a big one, so you can surf through all the exclusion criteria and learn a little bit about these 30 exclusion factors we identified. So this slide I inserted after our discussion yesterday. Why should we do science for all at all? one argument was epistemic inclusion. Is there an imaginable reason why we should exclude someone from knowledge? We have to discuss this. And then, of course, there is epistemic injustice. If you don't know things because you're from some poorer community or for some reason, maybe you lose your life, right? So there is a lot of injustice in this. Richer people maybe have a stronger access to information. And then we have this maybe naive theory of democracy. Science offers facts and truthfulness, and democracy needs both. This is what we think, but I'm not sure if this is true anymore. We have to also discuss this. This is what we talked about yesterday, and now some perspective from my part and from part of this project. There is this one utilitarian argument, maybe. Isn't it just useful to have knowledge? And then one maybe surprising thing is if you force scientists to interact with publics, you educate them. And you educate them about what the public thinks or the publics think. And you also educate them how the media works, because there's a lot of misconception about how the media works amongst scientists. And you empower them for the time to come, or maybe we're just already in this time. Epistemic authority is challenged. We need people who can interact with those people who challenge epistemic authority. We need skillful scientists and scientific institutions, and maybe these reaching out events and interacting with publics teaches everyone to do that. That's the hope. Okay, this is all very normative. This is not descriptive. After this project, we thought that we need more research on how language kicks in. So we have two projects now. One is together with people from rhetorics or rhetorical sciences at University of Tübingen, the so-called Red AI Center for Rhetorical Science Communication Research. That's one of the 4 Volkswagen Stiftung or foundation funded centers in Germany that also do a lot of public engagement on how people talk about AI, how they perceive AI. And then there is this project, Conflict and Consens, COALESCE, in science communication, where we investigate on how people fight over gender issues. Are there 2 sexes? Are there 2 or more genders, etc.? We built a linguistic corpus on this, and we analyze it again from a linguistic perspective and a rhetorical perspective. Okay, this is funded also by the Federal Ministry, and the other one is funded by Volkswagen Stiftung. How am I time-wise? Okay, thank you. So after the short, glimpse into these 2 projects, I would like to address another project, which I picked out because it has a lot of relationship to crisis communication in administrations, and this is something really a current issue here in Valencia. So this is the project MIRCOM. The translation is all these acronyms. It's horrible. I'm sorry. Multimodal risk and crisis communication in administration. Also funded by the ministry. Okay. So what you see here is this project not only did research, but it also did a big exhibition in Berlin in the Museum of Communication, where the communication during the pandemic, the topic here is the COVID-19 pandemic, was carried out. Okay, this project investigates how healthcare organizations use social media during the pandemic. And it's a big project. Our Karlsruhe part was only one of 6 projects. One project, for example, was about, or sub-project was about legal issues. So it's a big consortium. And second, how citizens received multimodal crisis information. And when I say multimodal, we not only looked at text, but text, picture, text, video, text typography, etc., interaction. We did a laboratory and online survey, how people view these offerings by administration, what they learned from them, and how and if they affected their behavior during the pandemic. And the fourth step, and that's what the project is doing at the moment, is to provide guidance to administrative institutions to maybe do different social media activities. So what the project did, it first assessed platform logics of social media, formats, agents, functions, topics, and the so-called multimodal orchestration. That is, we looked at Instagram and YouTube and partly also TikTok to see how they did their pandemic work differently. And then there was a communication analysis of Instagram posts, 1,612, and 864 YouTube videos. A laboratory study with over 100 participants. You saw this lab in the beginning with the goggles and people watching Instagram and YouTube. And then also an online survey with over 1,000 participants. And what we wanted to find out was, did knowledge transfer happen? Was there any readiness to act in the pandemic in one way or the other? What was about the internalization of knowledge or issues to address, trust issues, and in general, pandemic attitude? And of course, the aim was to maybe we can send some messages to administration to do it differently. Okay, one thing we found out that, and that is a point we also had yesterday, conversations with other people is so important, okay? 83%, I don't know if you see it, I hope you see it. So this is really important. Social media use, 39%. Okay, so that's just something we found out. Daily newspaper, a little bit more. Weekly newspapers, a little bit less. Private TV channels quite well, etc. So social media use, 39%, not so much, but neither was it very little. So who was active on the social media levels in Germany? I'm really curious to hear how this worked in Spain. The followers of Instagram accounts at the federal level. You can see at the beginning, no, nothing, nearly nothing. They partly they didn't even have a social media presence. This is, for example, Karl Lauterbach. He's a professor for public health, and he's a member. He was at that time a member of parliament. He started later, and then it rose and rose and rose. And here in the dark blue line, you have the Federal Ministry of Health. Okay, so it really started to go through. There is one public health institution. I don't know if you heard it in Germany, Robert Koch Institute. What did they do? Their mission is to inform the whole German public. In the mission statement, the whole public should be informed. So now guess, how many people worked in the communication department of this really important institution in Germany at the beginning of the pandemic? Guesses? Hands up.
1.
2. It's 100% more than you said. Okay, 2. So, of course, they needed 30, 50 or whatever at the beginning of the pandemic. They had 2. And you see it here. Oh, sorry. Sorry. You see it here. They started on Instagram at the beginning of 21. And they didn't really start flying, okay? So what they did was press conferences and YouTube streaming, at least, yeah. Okay, subscribers to YouTube channels at federal level also were rising after start of the pandemic. And here you also see the Robert Koch Institute. YouTube started only in 2021, also very late. And then the subscribers stalled in this region of 2,000, which isn't so big neither. In the project, we try to find out trust, how trust developed during the pandemic. Due to time reasons, I'm not going too much into detail. We can discuss it later. We identified a tendency to win trust in the public health institutions like Robert Koch Institute, Paul-Ehrlich-Institut, experts and scientists, and representatives from the healthcare sector, like people from the, like medical people. Losers of trust were all the political bodies, federal government, Federal Ministry of Health, state government, public television. And that correlates with a tendency to not getting vaccinated because vaccination information came from politicians, okay? And politicians, maybe they are not good for us, so I don't get vaccinated. Vaccination levels in Germany were disturbingly low. Spain, totally different. Spain, totally different. Yeah, yeah. Denmark, totally different. It is embarrassing. Okay. Now, in this project, we distinguish between different communication modes: information, explanation, mobilization, do something, wear masks, emotionalization, like care for your family, and interaction. Please vote. Would you wear a mask in this situation or that situation? And what we see here, that both on Instagram and on YouTube, these different modes tended to be on the information and explanation side, which is surprising because these media channels are not about information and explanation. Also about, but not only, they are a lot about emotions, about interaction, and about mobilization. So the channels were used in a way that were not so much typical for this channel, let's say. And then another thing, and now keep in mind, it's the same colors as before. You have the 5 different communication modes. In the beginning of the pandemic, both on federal level and on municipal level, the modes were in an equilibrium: emotional, interaction, etc. And then, especially on the municipal level, where you might assume that they are in direct contact with people, they concentrated on information, like top-down information, like do this, or this should be done, or this is how the pandemic goes, etc. So interaction, emotion, etc. was much, much lower. Interestingly, in the federal level, the contrast was not that big, but the tendency was the same, okay? So what we can see here, that the usage of these channels was, let's say, not very typical. And what I don't show you here, but we also have data on how many people followed influencers on Instagram with millions of followers, and some of them did really good work, did good science communication, but some of them did really bad science communication on the pandemic. So the federal and municipal level didn't use these channels in a way that you would expect. Now, let's go into 2 details before switching to the next project. How am I time-wise? Okay, cool. I don't know if you know the Swiss cheese model of pandemic strategies. I don't know if this is a German thing. So this is explained here. I don't want to go too much into detail, but the idea is if you use different measures in the pandemic, and put them over one another, at the end, you have no holes, okay? In one measure, you have holes. It doesn't work perfectly, but then you put another layer, another layer, another layer, another layer. Then you have a block of cheese, and there are no holes, and all the measures work together. They work. So this is the Swiss cheese model. And the federal government tried to explain this on Instagram and used these 4 slides here. Okay, in detail and so. So now we went to the lab with our subjects and asked them to watch these Instagram posts and then assess it. So positive, this is supposed to be green, is it's aesthetically pleasing, it's well understandable. I think it's a very good visualization of the problem, and I think it's also motivating to use different measures. So works for me. But there was also a lot of critique. It takes too long to read. I mean, you imagine to have this on your mobile phone like this with a, I don't know, microscope. It takes too long to read. It's a too complex a presentation with too many layers. It's difficult to connect image and text. So the multimodal orchestration did not work. So the cognitive channels were blocked. Either people looked at the cheese or they read the text and they didn't get it together. And too many pages, who is reading all this stuff? And it's kind of demotivating. Another example is this. This is also, no, this is not federal government. This is Baden-Württemberg. So one of the states in Germany. What they did, they took all the text from their website and put it on Instagram. So I'm not asking you to read this. It's difficult to read this on Instagram. So the impression is clear. There was positive reaction. You don't have to click around on any website, but you can see everything at one glance. So there was a positive, it was a nice person saying they did it not well, but I say something positive. It's very informative, a lot of information. It also explains the reason and goal yet again. So I'm getting a lot of explanation here. So the downside was, and I'm sorry, it's a little bit cut in the down there. It's very confusing. It's a lot to take in. No one reads through that. It's rather suited for a brochure. So people noted that it's not, you know, the mode is not apt for this kind of communication. Too much information, too long, didn't read. You have to search for the information. You have to do a lot of swiping. Not suitable for Instagram. Okay, so the users know. Baden-Württemberg government, well, way to go. Okay, what we find out here is influencers are much better in this. That's the thing. And administration has to learn. Why? Lack of money, lack of skills. And communication strategy very much directed to the inside. My colleague has to like it. My boss has to like it. And the boss says, no, there's too much cheese on this Instagram post. I want more text and information. And the communication people say, it's not only about information, it's also about emotion. Well, so there is a problem. I don't know how this is in Spain. It would be interesting to do a comparison. Okay, last project, and this is going to be quick. We found out that people who have to communicate in the administration very often are not prepared for this. So we took, in this project here, we took municipal health communicators as a target group, okay? And we developed the concept of discourse-sensible health communication. This is the project. My partner here is Stefan Böschen from RWTH Aachen. He's a sociologist. And we combined discourse analysis on the macro and micro level with guided interviews with practitioners from these administration and also exchange with target groups. And all these findings we've fueled into discourse sensible science communication. So the basic question here is, what do we need to know about how publics debate a certain topic in order to communicate properly? So we gave people, still in German, information on this, how they assess how the topic is discussed. So for example, there is a pandemic, I have to communicate something, my boss says I have to give people information, then I look in the TikTok channels and I look at Instagram, I look at the traditional media and what they say, and I find out with this brochure, with this help of these nice people from KIT, this discourse is polarized, so I have to take care. So prepare people for the, in German, we have this nice word, shitstorm. This is only used in Germany. So something bad happening on Instagram or in the social media. So being sensible for discourse and then starting to develop your communication measures. This is the outcome of this project. We just send it to JCOM and hopefully they publish it. Okay, I'm on the final path here. I hope you're happy. Instead of summing up, I would like to say what's to be done in these difficult times. I think we need to strengthen institutions. If you look at the US, institutions are thrown over. What is happening when you throw over institutions? You get disruption, you get chaos, and truth is also undermined. So we need to strengthen institutions on all levels, universities, public health institutions, etc., journalism, etc. So I think we should speak up not only when things don't work, but also when they work. People need to get a feeling for what is an institution that works? How do I notice that it works? What does this institution for me? I think this is really important. For this second point, we should also strengthen institutional or like strategic science communication, with not only with PR aims, public relations, but also benevolence, let's say, directed to the public good. And what we did in this DPUB Health project, we tried to strengthen the so-called intermediaries, those people in the institution that out of a sudden and without training have to communicate about health issues or about science. So we need to strengthen them. We also need to strengthen journalism, but we also need to strengthen people in these, well, neglected positions. I think we do not have enough research on like municipal workers who do these communication tasks. And then also get social media and app skills into municipal, regional, and federal institutions. And if I look at Valencia, maybe also how the communication between regional and federal governments can be better. And this is not a question of social media, that's a question of governance, okay? So strengthen good governance, yeah. And you don't win election with, I want good governance. So that's a problem in democracy. But well, this is not the topic today. But maybe yes, but maybe no. No. CICOM and communitarianism. I took the idea of, from the philosopher Sheila Ben Habib. Communitarianism, what we might need is, I start with the second point, start small, act offline and online, and build networks. So we need communities that share values, that share common ground, not like a church or so, or a cult, but as, listen, you have a better life when truth plays a role in your life, okay? So how do we get this abstract concept of truth relationship into communities? And they don't have the communities that already are together, but maybe we build new networks. I think this communitarianism approach, which of course you can also criticize on all levels. There's a whole big philosophical debate on this. But I think actual communitarianism could help to work. Actually, why did Donald Trump win, a lot of people say, okay, it's because he was so good in social media. He was also good in community work. His people entered the communities and said, hey, I help you with your health problem. So let's look at this and do it better. Okay. First point, emphasizing truth and trust, pointing out that it is relevant and helpful for your audience to issue truthful messages and to be able to trust each other. It might save lives. This is what we saw, I think, in Valencia and many, many other places in the world. Now, okay, thank you very much for listening. This is my team, and yeah, I'm open for discussion.
Thanks a lot, Annette. Wonderful talk. Very interesting. And very close to our problems now in Valencia. Especially, well, unfortunately, I couldn't attend the workshop yesterday afternoon. I know that you were analyzing the situation about the communication during the DANA. And well, at the very beginning, you were talking about the problems of kind of dystopic current situation of political and administration, political institutions and administration is taking their own agenda, completely, not only ignoring, but against technical information and data. And couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine, a colleague, historian of science, Jesus Català, published a short opinion article in a online newspaper in VilaWeb. And he was talking about an aspect that has not been highlighted enough in the different comments in newspapers and public in general. That is also administration was ignoring citizen science, especially this wonderful work done by a private association, that is Asociació Valenciana de Meteorologia. They have a wonderful network of observatories along all the territory, and they were already from the day before alerting about what is going on. And they were ignoring also that information, not only the official one, but the one that is coming from citizen science that is very strong and important in our country. So in my opinion, this all this, especially the last part of strengthening the how institutions, academic or scientific institutions, have to present to the public how they work, how they do, what they do, not only in the crisis moment, but before. It's very important. And unfortunately, what I can see is that many institutions are doing the other way around. They are not stressed. They are more interested in public relations and image than in strengthening scientific communication, at least in Valencia, at least in the University of Valencia. That is very dangerous. It's very dangerous. So sorry about this initial comment, but I need to say that. Now we have time for questions and comments from the public. Yes. Fabian.
Hey, Annette. Thank you very much. That was great. I've got two questions about two different parts. The first one is when you were talking about reaching hard to reach groups with science communication. And I always think something about the way that we imagine science, even as a term, that sometimes acts as a barrier. And I've said this because I was doing some research in Australia, and it was really interesting to see fishermen engaging with what to me is science, but for them, they were looking at, say, fishing programs, right? But they're learning about fish ecology, about marine ecology, about fishing, you know, fish biology and all those kind of things, classically what you would think of as science, but somehow that it's not imagined as science. So there's something about the way that we present it as science that limits the imaginary about what we can do with this. And then I have a second question, but I can get to that later because other people can speak.
I totally agree. Yeah, okay. I totally agree. Maybe we should stop talk about science or science communication or I'm a scientist or whatever, and just look at the relevant part. For example, these apprentices, they said, we are so much interested in what's happening with the new energy system. I mean, Germany is in a full-fledged change of the energy system, shutting off nuclear plants and trying to get people to do these pumps in the ground to warm up their houses. And these apprentices say, I would like to know more because in my school, they try to keep up, but there is so much development. We need these external resources. We want it. But you approach us in a way that we don't feel we get connected. So yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah. Second question? Didn't you have another one? Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you very much. It was really interesting. I have a question related to formats, meaning, well, specifically in, I'm quite interested in social network formats because the tendency is always convey information as short as possible in order to make that easier for the people to understand. And it caught my attention that you mentioned the cheese infographic, which is one of the complaints was that it was difficult to read. And I don't know if that was related to, it took time to understand. And well, I don't know if this is kind of a question, but just a food for thought. And I would like to hear your opinion about this. Could this become a problem, that the tendency with these vertical videos that, you know, in Instagram, TikTok, these kind of formats are normally shorter and shorter, and people want that. But this and the so people want curated content. They don't want to think. They just want to be said the truth, let's say. But on the other hand, people don't trust the conveyor, you know, the measure. So is this gonna become, well, in my opinion, becomes a problem? I would like to hear your opinion, but how could this be solved? Is there a solution, possible solution for that? Because the tendency is gonna become stronger in this sense. So I don't know, I would like to hear your opinion about this, because I think in the future this will be a challenge for communicators, and I think it's a quite a great problem for the society. Thanks.
Thank you very much. This is a fundamental question. Yes, if you see how young people especially use TikTok, their attention span is so like short and also fine-grained. They process information in such a short item of time that other people who are not used to it are like, I mean, we have this this channel in Germany, Funk, which addresses from public radio network that address young people, especially on Instagram, and they say, okay, we are like those who do it. They sometimes have 40, 50 years old, and they say, we don't get it anymore. We can't use these videos because it's all blurring, and these young people, they use it. Okay, so yes, it is a problem. It is a problem, that on the one hand, curated content, what you said, is a high barrier for institutions to reach this level of professionality, especially in the video sector. So this is relatively easy to do here, but to produce a YouTube video that in like 50 seconds or so explains the cheese model, that's just another level. That's a really big problem. So what you can maybe do is, there are also findings that if people are hooked up and interested, they are willing to read and to go through longer stories. When they have the feeling this is going to be super relevant for me, I'm going to take the time. So this is one trick to get beyond the attention barrier. So relevance is super, super important. Be relevant, and then you can do a lot of things with your audience, okay? Even make them read. On the other hand, maybe a multi-channel strategy is good. To have on TikTok like more videos that show that the federal government is not evil and fun, and in Instagram and other media, maybe just explain things. So, but I don't have a perfect answer for this. This is a big challenge, because when people have the feeling that a channel is badly done, they conclude that the content is also not reliable and bad. This is a big problem. You can have the best messages and you do a bad TikTok video and then you lose because people said, this is a crappy video, so the content must be crap too. Your institution is bad. I don't trust you. That's a problem.
Yeah, another technical question is that I loved the infographic that you showed before. I didn't find it online. Could you, I mean, the one that shows the 30.
Yeah, I put the link in the slides, and sorry, I put the link in the slides so you can look at it. And even maybe we have posters left, so we can send it to you.
A below one.
It's a very nice one, although on this,
Yeah, that one.
it doesn't show so much, but yeah, you have to dive into. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
More questions? Caroline.
Thank you so much for your talk, Annette, as always. And I want to only add something else to the Julie's word before, related to the participation of the citizens reporting information, because this is a point relevant, at least in the case of Valencia Dana. Citizens were reporting were reporting videos, photos about the different floods areas. And you have this information. Indeed, meteorology agency in Valencia had this information, and they were reporting all time. So the information they receive from the citizen, I think yesterday in the session, people were seeing and reading about this reporting, and were surprised, because it's like citizen science in this case. It was a pivotal information, and institutional was missing, lack of information. So it's incredible in this case. So the relevant or the crucial participation of the citizen science in this case, in emergencies. And the other thing is about the cheese image. I was very surprised when you explain about this image, because I use for my student this for the explanation about the risk theory. But I spent maybe 30 minutes explain the overall theory. I spent more or less 30 minutes because they need to know how this works. So I was surprised because I think, honestly, maybe people in general or general audience maybe couldn't understand this kind of imaging, because behind this image there is a huge risk theory. So maybe sometimes we need to down the level, like academic, I don't know, but maybe think in people don't have training in this kind of theory. It's amazing, the pictures, but this is my opinion because I use with my journalism, science journalism students. So I don't know.
Yeah, so I start with the cheese thing. You're absolutely right. It's a very, very, very complex theory, and
Complexity.
amazingly enough, these slides at least give people the illusion of understanding. I mean, you always very often have illusion of understanding in science communication, I think.
Yeah.
So I think the message here is don't stick just to one measure, to combine the measures. It's not only the masks, but please wash also your hands, for example. And this is, so it's very basic information. And when you have the feeling that you have to be accurate and have to be accountable what you say in scientific and academic terms, then you will lose on Instagram, because yes, you have to be very simple because you don't get the whole theory into these slides. On the other hand, you have the relevance thing. So relevant here is people need to understand what the cheese model is because everyone is talking about this. They don't want to meet people and say, did you hear about the cheese model? I've never heard about this. So relevant for people is to know what the politicians, for example, are talking about. And they need the illusion of understanding, okay, let's combine the measures and this is good. And this is enough. This is relevance-wise enough for this post, and not the whole theory, which would need other formats, other settings, other situations, because this was the risk situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So we need to reframe, readapt the format, maybe improve with different formats too, because maybe Isabel, we were talking about the possibility to do this kind of matches in video, in a short, very short video, because it is quickly, fast, and maybe people understand easily. So,
and
thank you.
I just also wanted to address the citizen science issue you both raised. And I totally agree that in Germany, at least, citizen science was very much embraced by politics and by founding agencies saying, let's do a little citizen science that integrates people. But we control the message, okay? The science is in charge and integrates citizen scientists. But we have the other movement also. I don't know if you heard about the famous insect dying of biomass study in Germany, 2017. This study wouldn't have been possible without the so-called citizen scientists who for years monitored how the biomass degraded. No university, no founding agency is going to fund this. This is pure citizen science. They do it from themselves. They published it together with scientists from institutions. It was a big thing. And so citizen science, maybe this is the wrong word, I don't know. On the one hand, it integrates people, yes, and it forms communities and networks and gives you the possibility to spread the science idea, the truth idea, my last slide. On the other hand, it's also kind of an counter-public. Like, we know things that the official institutions don't know. So it's a democratic movement in a way. I don't know if the German politicians would think about the citizen science as a public democratic movement, but yes, it is. In part, it can be that. And it's not funded by anyone, and they do it for themselves, and they say, we got the news, and we are very sorry to hear that the institutions don't give us the information we have, and nobody listens to us. So we need a new assessment, I think, to what citizen science is, and we shouldn't fall into the doctrine of this is embracing the citizens. No, the citizens tell you, shut up.
Yeah, I think we should do training for politicians, no for science communicators. So, yeah, for politicians.
In Germany, you have the Leibniz Society with 88 institutions of science, and what they do is they make like meetups with politicians. Like, let's have a cup of coffee together and let's just chat about science. So because they try to just get the scientific information or thoughts or assessment a little bit into the heads of politicians. With a cup of coffee, sometimes it works.
Thanks for your talk. You've been addressing audiences, strategies for communication, for science communication. I know it's out of your scope in this talk, but what can you tell us about the professional profiles for scientific communicators? I mean, on the other side, who has to do all that strategies, all that effort to address, to get more and best achievements?
Okay, all I said is very relevant for the professional science communicators too, or especially for them also. They need to not cut out audiences, integrate audiences, use the right channels, use the right formats, etc., etc., etc. That's what we try to address in a weekly manner on this platform, Wissenschaftskommunikation.de, where we try to give professional communicators hands-on information, evidence-based and hands-on information, how what is a good YouTube video, for example? What does science say about this? I know that in Spain and also in Germany, there are these congregations of professional science communicators where these information are shared. And then there's, of course, like on BA or whatever, MA level academic education on this. This is all fine. The problem is always resources. So cutting resources, I mean, you cannot do professional TikTok videos if you don't have the resources. So the professional communicators are always handling the non-resources and try to, I mean, it's a bit like in science, okay? You work all the night because, yeah, you got funding cut and you got one person left who's doing the actual job. So yeah, this is a problem. So we don't only have to tell them what to do, but we should tell them more how to do this with low resources, or how to prioritize, how to do the really relevant thing. I think this is the thing in the future. If we look at the severe cuts in public spending now in, for example, Berlin is in terror at the moment because they're cutting science communication, everything. It's crazy. So we need, as academics, I think we need to invest in what is the priority. So what to do and what not to do. I think this is one of the answers I might put for this.
Have a last question.
Hi, I really liked when you were talking about emotions in communication, and I'm thinking, so I was in New Zealand during the pandemic, and we had a very unique experience. And actually the main message out of New Zealand was first, be kind, right? That was the whole message. The first thing was be kind, and then all the things that you had to do.
Yes.
So it was very emotionally driven in many ways. But part of that is that New Zealand's got an incredibly high trust in government. So I think also when we start to think, when we talk about, say, putting emotions into communication, all those kind of things, it comes in a certain context, cultural context, that's really important. And so then I was thinking about the project you're doing with Aachen, about the kind of the culture of discussion. Is there a way to think of how that might go too, the kind of the culture within which you have the capacity to bring in emotions? Is that part of that project? Is there a way to make that part of that project? Do you see where I'm going with this?
In developing this concept of discourse sensible communication, we also assessed the emotion literature. We didn't integrate it empirically. So, but yes, it is, of course, a big issue. Depending on what you mean by emotions, of course, that's always a definition thing. But I think we talked about the work of Daniel Silva the other day. So these people who are really investigating emotions empirically, I think we have to take a close look. Emotions towards government, emotions toward other people, emotions of science communicators, emotions in between a risk communication team, etc. Because I think this shapes a lot of how we see the world. And also things like if you remember these 5 communication modes, maybe a government that feels it isn't trusted switches to information mode. I mean, we marveled at New Zealand because there was a kind of a communication ecosystem that made it possible to communicate that way. If you have a toxic communication system, emotions might be the totally wrong way to go. And then also it is, how do you address it? It's always the how. So yeah, it's a big issue.
Okay, Annette. With more time and using literally a Spanish expression, I will open a melon on artificial intelligence, because I'm convinced that we are witnessing a phase transition, that not only people will generate information or misinformation, but networks of machines will take the control of the flux of information. So I know that you are very sensitive to these problems, but we don't have time today. So maybe it's nice to organize a new meeting focusing on the problem, because the attitude or the opinion of most of my colleagues in the university is against the use of artificial intelligent machines or devices. But other people are using already this kind of weapons against science.
Yeah.
So
maybe, yeah, I would love to.
So let's thank again Annette for this wonderful and inspiring talk.
Gracias.